What also jumps out as I look at this whole battle, they say it's about cutting the deficit. But when so much attention is on Planned Parenthood and the EPA.
Exactly.
What does that say to you when those two issues are considered to be on the same level as $1 trillion deficit?
Well, I call it hostage taking and ransom. That's the ransom. The EPA and Planned Parenthood is the ransom to release the hostages, and the hostage is the U.S. budget. Again, this was something that was done on an annual basis. I went through this 5 times in the time that I was Speaker. And what happened there was that the Republicans would use the economic crisis to force key issues of public policy that they weren't able to pass in ordinary times. So the fact that we are talking about holding up the state budget because we don't want to provide mammograms, cervical screening, and family planning. This is what we want. This is what we're holding up the U.S. budget for. I think is really scandalous.
What happens? What is your reaction when the phrase "job killer" is attached to everything? I mean, literally, we've heard everything with the EPA. Oh, these are job-killing regulations. In fact, we had Elizabeth Warren here, and they were talking about getting rid of the Consumer Protection Bureau because they were saying that's a job-killing bureau when they're there to protect the actual consumers who lost their jobs in the recession.
Well, I actually think it's a very appropriate phrase that should be used to describe the Republican budget, because even the Republican economic analysts say that if we passed the Republican budget today and the president signed it, it would result in a job loss of 700,000 jobs. So if you want to talk about job killing, look at H.R. 1. That's the Republican solution for the deficit at this point in time.
Should the president, should he have put forth a more aggressive budget that cut a lot more? Or do you think he was really playing the situation where he was forcing them to say, fine, you now control the House, now you must step in and put some skin in this game?
Well, I think the budget, first of all, the president should not have put forward a budget that called for any deeper cuts. And the reason for that is because the recovery that we're experiencing now, maybe not in our community, but the recovery that we're experiencing now is very fragile. And all of the top economists have said that if you have deeper cuts right now, when the economy is just recovering, you could throw us back into a recession. And I guarantee you that if we pass the pathway to despair that Paul Ryan put forward, we would go back into a recession, and we cannot afford that right now.